Hey everyone, what is going on? Welcome to day
5
of Vlogmas. Today I'm going to be going over how to properly wax your snowboard. So first off, let's talk about waxing. Waxing your snowboard is great for your board. If you think about maintaining a car, how you need to get your oil changed regularly, waxing the snowboard is kind of the same thing. It will help keep the longevity of the board, keep it fresh, keep it fast, and just make your overall experience riding your snowboard even better. I know a lot of people will bring their snowboard into board shops where they pay someone else to wax their board. But if you're interested in learning how to wax your board yourself, stay tuned because I'm gonna go over this whole process step by step. Trust me, it's super easy. Once you get used to it, you're gonna love waxing your board all the time. As far as how often to wax a snowboard, I normally wax my board about every 5 days that I've ridden it. Or the other way to tell when it's a good time to wax your board is when the bottom of your board starts to look chalky. So for this video, I'm using this board, my Santa Cruz snowboard, which I haven't ridden since last winter, and I didn't wax it at all. Usually in the springtime or when summer starts, and I know I'm not gonna ride a particular snowboard for a lot of months, is when I will throw a thick layer of wax on because that'll help keep your board hydrated over the summer until the next time you ride. But I didn't do that on this one. So you can see the bottom of this snowboard looks super chalky all the way across. And you can see these chalky bits. If you take your fingernail, you can like scratch them, and that's particles of your base coming off. So this board is definitely in need of a good wax. So now that we know that it's time to wax this board, let's talk about the tools that we're gonna use. Really simple, we've got an iron and some wax. The iron that you use to wax your board can either be an iron like this that's made specifically for waxing a snowboard. It's got these rounded edges and it's handheld. It has temperature settings that are ideal for waxing boards. But if you don't get one of these, this is a 1-ball-J iron. But if you don't have one of these, you can pick up an iron at a thrift store, just a used regular old clothing iron for like $5. I used one of those originally before I had this. And it works great. Just make sure you don't use that same iron when you go to wax your clothes later. I mean, when you go to iron your clothes later, don't wax your clothes. That's just a bad idea. Okay, so that's our iron that we're gonna be using. And this wax that I'm gonna be using, this is an all-temp wax. It's just a random brand that I got at a contest somewhere. But all-temp is good for, I'd say, beginning of the season when it's still kind of warm out and there's some man-made snow and some fresh snow and the temperatures are kind of all over the place. This is a generic, like, good to go all-temp. When I am in the middle of winter in Colorado and it's super cold, I use a cold temp wax. The way you figure out what temperature of wax you want to use is by the temperature of the snow. It's pretty easy though to make a general guesstimate based on the temperature of the air and how cold it is versus what type of wax you want to use. The cold temp waxes are going to be harder and better for going fast in cold snow, and then warm temp is good for the summer, and when in doubt, use all temp. So yeah, let's get started with this. So I just plugged in my iron and we're going to wait for a couple minutes for it to warm up. If you're not sure if it's warm, you can kind of go like this, and if nothing drips, it's not warm yet. Also, if you don't have a waxing table, right now I just have 2 chairs that the board is on top of, and this is good enough. I've waxed the board on my lap and burnt my leg with the iron, and it was all good, but just whatever you can set up, it's easy to just have it like at this height. So, it's starting to smoke, which means it is warmed up. I'm gonna check my temperature settings. I usually start with this somewhere in the middle. It's at like 120 right now. If the wax isn't going into my board enough, then I'll up the temperature, but I don't want to burn the wax. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this piece of wax, hold it against the iron until it starts to drip. And you just wanna cover your board in a nice stream of drips. I normally like to make a stream of drips that runs along the edge of my board on both sides of the edges, because typically the edges is where you'll see the most amount of that dry chalky stuff. And then just kind of scatter wax along the middle. If you have a more expensive wax and you're trying to conserve the wax, what you can do is hold the wax against the iron and warm it up, and then you just take the bar and move it along the board. So this is a good trick if you don't want to use as much wax, if you're trying to conserve, and you'll still get the same effect. Also, when you're applying the wax to your base, you don't need to go all the way to the edge. If you think about the part of your board that rides along the snow, it goes to about there. So that's all you really need the wax to, your tip and your tail. All right. Now that your board is covered in the wax is my favorite part. For me, this bit is really therapeutic. You're just gonna take your iron and just move it around on the board. And it's quite nice. It's very peaceful. You never want to just leave your iron like that because that is a good way to melt your base. So always just keep it moving slowly. And one of the things that I do to make sure the wax gets in evenly is I do little circles. I'm constantly moving around in little circles. You'll start to see kind of puddles of wax form. One of the tricks I use to know if I've waxed a certain area long enough is when a puddle will stay for a good, 5 or 6 seconds. And if you can feel the heat on the other side of the board when you put your hand under the base, that means it's time to move on to the next spot. So I just stay on these areas, making circles until I get these little puddles. All right, now that I've got my board fully covered in wax, I'm just gonna take it and let it hang out for the night. Some people try to scrape off their wax right after they wax, but really you wanna at least let it sit overnight, which gives the pores of the board proper time to absorb the wax materials into their pores. So yeah, we're gonna let this sit overnight and then scrape it in the morning.
Board flip.
Board flip with a snowboard. Oh God. All right, so now that you've let your wax. All right, so now that you've let your wax sit for the night, I actually let mine sit for like a week because I've been, busy snowboarding. It's time to scrape. So for scraping the board, we're gonna have a nice little scraper. These you can buy online. They're pretty cheap and you can use them multiple times. When they get dull, you can just sharpen them up again. But so nice new scraper. And we're gonna take the board at an angle and we're gonna make long strokes.
Satisfying?
So satisfying. Feels like butter. Scraping wax is like actually my least favorite part of waxing a board. So you got this method where you can do it kind of standing up on something, or sometimes when I really need to get more pressure to get all the wax off, I'll put it on the ground and kind of like sit on it and just go at it. When you're scraping your wax off is that you want to scrape as much off as possible. The beneficial part of the wax is what has been absorbed into the base's core, but anything like outside the base you don't need, so you just want to kind of scrape everything you can off. When you scrape, you want to do it in your vertical lines. You don't really scrape across the board. You want to keep it consistent like this. Just doing a last couple scrapes here. And then you can figure out when you're done by running your hand along the board. And if it feels pretty smooth, you don't really have any lumps sticking out, that means you got in a nice smooth scrape. Let's get a little more right here. There we go. So this board is all waxed, scraped, ready to go. Some people have wax all over me. Some people will use a wire-haired brush and run the brush along from nose to tail, and that helps you go even faster, but it's not super necessary. I do that when I'm competing in half pipe, but if you're just going out for a fun day on the mountain, this is all you needed to do. So yeah, that is how you wax a snowboard, and now I'm gonna throw this in my car and go ride. See you guys tomorrow on Vlogmas Day
6.
Bye! Life isn't perfect. It's messy and unexpected, but it's wonderful. You
can find love, magic, and beauty all around you if you chase after it. So find what lights your soul up, then go out and carpe your happy.